In terms of the paper I'm using a medium textured paper. You can also use rough textured paper. And the reason why I'm using it is because with landscapes, if you've got a bit of texture in the paper, you get these nice sort of wet and wet effects easily. The paper doesn't dry too quickly as well. You can allow these nice kind of sporadic areas where the brush skips over paper. I find it's just a lot easier to work into rough or medium textured paper. So if you manage to get some of that, go ahead and pick it up. I've also used a 100% cotton paper for this demonstration. Recommend that as well. And the reason being is that it gives you a lot more time to actually get in a lot of these effects. The paper takes a bit longer to dry, so you can drop in other colors, such as here. You can see I've done it in a few different places and get some nice different mixes as well. So you've also find with 100% cotton paper, when you go over a region, again, it doesn't lift off that previous color. Whereas if you use something like cellulose paper or unidentified paper. So in terms of brushes, I'm just going to talk a bit about what I'm using. So I've got a few mop brushes, and these ones, as you can see, they are sort of declining in size. This one I use for the larger regions, and it really depends on how large you're painting. This is an A3 sheet of paper, so I always like to use a large brush to get in these bigger shapes. And then as I start to work on smaller shapes, things like this shade here, I'll swap down to a smaller mop brush. Now these mop brushes are really good in terms of getting in those initial washes, getting in large shadow shapes, cutting around, because as you can see, you've got a fine tip on the end as well. So it does let you cut around and also be able to paint a large area. So these are a few additional brushes that I use for this particular painting. I've got this one here, which is like a little round brush, and it's synthetic, really good for getting in figures and smaller details where you need some more control. It doesn't hold much water, as you can see, but again, that's not the use of this brush. It's to get in small details. Even the legs, you can see there of this figure, a couple brush strokes there. I also use this little flat brush, and the flat brush can be good at outlining areas, say, of the windows, something like that. Here, it makes it just a lot easier because that brush is kind of shaped, in that squarish sense, and so you get sharper edges, and it's just a little bit easier to imply details. So that's about it for the brushes. As you can see here, I've got my palette, and a lot of paints here, a lot of paints. But you're not going to need all of these for this particular scene. I've just got one of my primaries here. This is a Perylene Red. I've got some yellow ochre, so I used a little bit of that for the background wash too. I've got some burnt sienna, and burnt sienna is great for getting in some of these buildings. I have some purples in there as well, a bit of black, so this here is just a bit of lunar or lamp black, which granulates. And here you can see, I've got little bits of red I've just used for the figures. There's not really many colors in here. I think I've got a bit of purple back there or blue back there as well. So it's a limited palette. Seeing the sky, I've got a bit of cerulean blue, which is this one here. So really, if you've got your three primary colors, if you've got a red, you've got a blue, and you've got a yellow, even a brown on the side there, you can paint this all in very, very easily. So that's about it for materials. I sometimes go in with a bit of white gouache at the end. I haven't done it here, but a bit of white gouache can be good if you want to bring out some highlights of the figures.